All right, good morning, Salem. You're here with your Shawniest show on morning radio, Sean Squared. Now, as promised, I have the Vice President of Administration, Mr. John Keenan, in here to answer your questions.
Morning, Sean.
All right, so the first question that we got, and probably the biggest question that we received from anyone, and pretty much everyone, is about Wi-Fi. A lot of students complain that they couldn't get Wi-Fi in certain classrooms in the computer science lounge in Meyer Hall or in their dorm rooms in the Peabody building. So is there anything being done to improve the Wi-Fi or?
Yeah, it's a problem we hear from certainly students. I would say especially in Bowditch and Peabody, in the dorm space. We're taking a sort of campus-wide look at IT needs across South Campus, North Campus, Central Campus. Actually, today, as we speak, later this afternoon, we'll be looking at a process called IT governance, which is really an allocation of resources and fully aware of the constraints in PB and Bowditch and looking at options to be able to address that in other places on campus. I would say, Sean, it's worthwhile to hear this, and certainly if your listeners have locations that are of particular concern, certainly have them send it in to me, jkeenan@salemstate.edu, and we'll try to take a closer look at it. Problem is, like everything else, is resources. It's very expensive to address these issues in IT, but we hope to be able to do that.
I definitely agree. I've been poring over the budget, just looking at certain things. I can see that the IT allotment is minuscule compared to some of the other things that we spend money on, which I'm really looking into, and I hope to get back to people on that. But another question and complaint we heard a lot of was about the upkeep in the buildings, especially Sullivan and Harrington. Yep. Is there anything being done right now to upkeep these buildings or retrofit the buildings?
Yeah, Sean, great question. Also, I will tell you, this is coming up on the end of my second year being here at Salem State. Last year, the entire campus, every single building was in a comprehensive review of all the systems, the facility systems in each and every building. At this time, we believe we have approximately $160 million or so worth of deferred maintenance. And we are looking at those and prioritizing those. Again, later today in Cabinet, we're reviewing what's called the Capital Planning Review Team that prioritizes projects here on campus. A couple of those projects that are up today are, in fact, the Sullivan Building. We believe we need to put a new roof on the Sullivan Building next year, which is really critical before you start doing other things in the classrooms below. You have to make sure the envelope is tight. So that's one of the projects we'll be looking at. But just for your audience's edification, I mean, a project like that in and of itself, just replacement of the roof, is a $500,000 project. So all these projects are very resource intensive, and we're trying to prioritize those. The Harrington Building we will also be looking at. We may, in fact, add a couple more nursing labs, simulation labs, up in the Harrington Building. But at this juncture, I would tell you we do not want to make a big investment into the Harrington Building right now, as there's probably going to be some renovations when what we call the Harrington Horace Mann flip. The City of Salem, Mayor Driscoll, Councilor Dibble, are very interested in essentially flipping the Horace Mann School for the Harrington Building up on South Campus, bringing our nursing, criminal justice, OT program down here onto Central and on North Campus, and allowing that to be the elementary school, which will be anybody that tries to drive down Loring Avenue at 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. when school is getting in and out at Horace Mann understands what a challenge that is for the traffic. So for the right educational reasons and for traffic and safety reasons, that's a good idea, and probably a few years away, but at this point still would rather not invest too much into the Harrington Building, knowing that that's going to happen.
So I guess that kind of answers the question of what the future of the Horace Mann building, the Horace Mann School is. So they're going to move the whole student infrastructure. It's not going to be in a year or two, I'm sure, but over time they're going to move the whole school down to South Campus.
Yeah, it all really depends, Sean, on financing. The expectation at this time, I think, would be that at least part of the nursing program moved into Horace Mann. It's not definite. Depends on space needs. In fact, we're just beginning a process to do what's called a request for proposals to have a planner come in and look at North Campus. A big part of that review, if you will, of the planning exercise is to determine how we could in fact accomplish the flip from Harrington to Horace Mann, but it may in fact be part of Harrington moving into Meyer Hall, part of Harrington moving into, perhaps the dining commons, if the dining commons is moved into another residence hall. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I sort of call it the Rubik's Cube, if you will, of the planning department. There are a lot of different elements that come into play that impact North Campus, and that's part of what this review over the next 6 months will really help us figure out. But it could be part of that program.
Very interesting. Are there any new school buildings being planned?
Our priority, Sean, really is the science building. As you may know, that was well into a study up until last summer when the Baker administration decided, and rightfully so, to pause capital planning and construction here in the Commonwealth while they figured out where they wanted to make their investments going forward. They've just retained a consultant to do that with the expectation that their plan will be completed likely February, about a year from now. In doing that, they will take a look and review part of the process that we did for the building, for the science building. The science building is as planned right now and designed right now is literally it's all lab space. There's 21 labs and one greenhouse, which are definitely needed because Meyer Hall, because of the floor ceiling heights, is not capable of being adapted to modern day labs. And if you've taken any labs over there, you know that they need to be updated. And a lot of the state buildings, such as Meyer Hall, even the main stage theater, quite frankly, a lot of these buildings have not had significant updates since they were built in 1950, 1960. So we're not unique in that situation. We have over $160 million, as I mentioned, of deferred maintenance. Most of the state university campuses are in a similar place. So the Baker administration will take a look and see where they want to invest. But science building is the one that we hope is next on the block.
I agree. If there's anything, a little anecdote, if there's anything I can say, I mean, Meyer Hall is very outdated. I mean, just taking a computer science course in there, it's crowded into one little corner. I'm not sure the size of the computer science department at all, but I mean, for the amount of students I know who are taking it, it's about four computer labs, and it's a very small crowd. I mean, it would be nice to have a new building. Where's the new excuse me? Where's the new building being planned to be built?
So the present study, actually, we called it the infill option. So it would essentially be at the end of East and West Meyer Hall wings. So as you were driving down to the parking garage on College Drive, if you basically looked into the bottom of the U-shaped building, that's where the new structure would be built. It's approximately a 5-story building, a 4.5-story building with some utilities on the roof. But it would fit right into the end of Meyer Hall. Not all the way. There would be actually a nice courtyard plan, but it would allow for access from both the east and west sides of Meyer Hall so that you could actually do a loop and connect to all the classrooms. As I had mentioned, the new building will be all laboratory space. The classrooms will remain in Meyer Hall, and we would expect at some point there'd also have to be a renovation of Meyer Hall to update some of the classrooms over there. But it would also open up several areas that we could that we're going to have to figure out how to backfill, and that could be actually part of the nursing program and the criminal justice program coming down from South Campus.
I mean, that sounds like the best plan that I've heard so far. I mean, there were some rumors that I've heard that they were going to buy more land on Loring Avenue too, which I don't necessarily agree with.
Who was going to buy more land on
the school? The school was going to buy more land on Loring Avenue, but that's what I have heard. But I don't know if that's necessarily true or if it's even continuing on like that.
So I don't want to let that just hang out there. That's an interesting comment, John. We did buy, as you know, 75 Loring Ave and tore it down, and we're going to do some landscaping this spring in a couple of reasons, really, to do that. One is public safety, and that is that the Salem Fire Department wanted better access to that side of the building, and that will enable for that to happen. And also it will make for better sight lines on Loring Avenue. And we did not reach out to that homeowner. They actually reached out to us, and we came to an agreement to acquire that property. The other property I will tell you we recently acquired is 410 Lafayette, which is also on the other side of North Campus. We again were approached by the homeowner there to ask if we wanted to buy it, and in preparation, anticipation of actually building the new science building right there, we thought it was appropriate opportunity for us to take advantage of that. And ideally, we hope that one of our employees will actually rent it or lease it and live there as a residential neighbor. That's the plan for that property. But other than that, we do not have any expectation of acquiring other sort of residences on Loring Avenue.
All right. You mentioned the parking lot. I mean, if there's been one single success for the capital planning department, it's the parking garage. Now, I had a couple of students ask me what the usage on the parking lot is, but I figured it's high. Everyone I know who has a car parks at the parking garage. It's a big success.
I would agree with you, Sean. I think it is a big success, and it's really validated, if you will, the traffic study that we had done before we built the garage. And all three of you guys probably know this just by driving around anecdotally. Our parking crunch, if you will, our peak is really 12 hours. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 10 to 2. And the utilization that we've seen so far on the garage has really confirmed that. You'll see on noontime at any particular day, the garage is most full. And certainly almost, I think 590 has been the largest number of cars we've had in the facility so far. So we still have some capacity. We are hopeful actually next September when the whole new freshman class comes in, we'll actually be able to get better utilization. This year, because it was not available right at the beginning of the semester, I think we're still trying to notify some people that the garage is there. You don't actually see it that easily, quite frankly, unless you know it's there. But we'll do some more communication. And next September, I would gather we're going to get up into the mid 600s, if not closer to 700 by the time we really notify people next September. But it's been great project.
Yeah, and it seems that the community at large, who put up a giant fight about it and were angry about it, they really don't seem to have any complaints about it. It seems to be pretty much of a complete and utter success.
There certainly were some neighbors that would express their displeasure, if you will, with our building the garage right there. We continued to speak to the direct abutting neighbors on Raymond Road and Raymond Avenue and trying to do some additional mitigation this spring in terms of landscaping. And we're also working with some of the sort of very direct abutters, those on Raymond Ave, in terms of some of the light spill that comes out of the garage, and working with our technical engineer, our lighting engineer, to address some of those issues in the next month or two, working with the local ward councilor as well. So we're aware there are some concerns out there, and we continue to work to mitigate those with myself and Adria Leach, who does our outreach to the neighborhood. And we'll continue to try to make it the best possible project we can. We do agree that it's been a tremendous success for our students who are able to park there.
All right. And I just have like two more questions. Now, what is the amount of, what is the vacancy on the dorms? Because we just built a couple new dorm buildings, and I had a couple students wondering how many of them were vacant.
That is not an area of my portfolio, but I will tell you I've been in meetings, and we're actually undergoing at this very moment another housing demand study to see what need or capacity there is going forward. Even with bringing Viking online, it is my understanding that we're still over capacity, quite frankly. We have reallocated some freshman space from Peabody and Bowditch down to Marsh. I think there's 100 or so beds down there. So what we're looking at right now is do we need another residence hall? Where should we put that? Do we need some space that's dedicated for graduate students? But at this time, I am not aware of there being vacancy, if at all. That in fact, if anything, we need to, in all likelihood, build another residence hall in the not too distant future.
Yeah, I read in the president's report that the plan is to get capacity up to 50% of students. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, and I think right now we're close to 37, 38%, somewhere around there. So yeah, we would need to certainly add at least one more, one or two more residence halls, certainly, to get to that. If there's 1,200 beds we need, that's at least 2 or 3 residence halls at some juncture over the next decade or so.
All right, and the very last question, and one I only received from a couple of people. This is about flooding at Lake O'Keefe. as some call it, the great second pool of Salem State. Is there anything being done, or is there anything that can be done, frankly, to fix the flooding at O'Keefe?
There is. In fact, we've been working with the city of Salem, and I know we had that one unfortunate circumstance. I can't remember if you guys might remember. Either September or October, we had a torrential downpour, if you will, that happened to coincide almost precisely with the time when we need the most parking and high tide in Salem Harbor, which is really sort of a perfect storm that was neither predicted nor could we really prevent it. And we had a few cars that flooded. We are working with the city of Salem to allow them to actually build under the O'Keefe parking lot. Is essentially a 4.6 million gallon holding tank. It's literally a bunch of smaller tanks, but it will hold 4.5 million gallons of water. So if we were to have such a torrential downpour or flooding on Canal Street again, it would actually hold the water underground, and then it would be pumped down into the ocean, actually, down near Forest River. So plans are underway right now. They've designed most of it. They have to go back and look at some pieces of it because at one juncture there was discussion of actually taking the entire parking lot offline while they built this, which is really, for us, quite frankly, a non-starter. We can't give up those 700-800 parking spaces all at once. So we're trying to figure out, working with the city, how to phase that project because they have to literally dig up the parking lot, put the tanks in, then cover it over again. So at the end of the day, we will have a holding tank underground and we'll have a better, more level parking lot as well outside the O'Keefe Gassett Center. So ultimately, it will be a win-win, if you will, quite frankly, for the city, for the university, and the students. We don't know the exact timing of that yet. It's quite an expensive project. I think it's into the $20 million dollar mark. Again, the city of Salem is funding that, and we're contributing, I think, $1 million to that. But overall, it's a city of Salem project and rather expensive. And I've lived here, as you have, I think, your entire life. I'm over 50 now. Canal Street has been a problem for a long time, and this is not an easy problem to fix. Quite frankly, not unlike the issue of flooding in Main Street, Peabody Square. It's been a long time coming. So we do help working with Mayor Driscoll and the City Council to be able to address that, and hopefully that's in the next 3 to 5 years at most. But we are hopeful of that. That is a great solution.
And all right, that's all I have for questions. But if students want to talk to you, want to reach out to you, I assume you're very available to students or questions. Is there any way they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. Either person or email. My email is, like everybody else, my first initial and my last name. So it's J. Keenan at salemstate.edu. Certainly they can reach out to you as well, Sean, or the radio station. Happy to answer any questions that we can. We on our planning process, trying to be as transparent as we can. I will tell you, we encourage and would like to solicit information from the student body as we go forward, especially with this North Campus development planning exercise that we're going through over the next 6 months. So we'll be reaching out to neighbors and we'll be reaching out to all of you. Two pieces of that are really important to the students certainly are where we're sitting right now, down in the basement, the campus center. As you may know, Sean, this was built many years ago when we had 1,000 students. We now have 10,000 students, and we need a much better campus center that's appropriate for the student body here today. That's a big part of this study that is going forward. Also, does there need to be another residence hall here on North Campus? And if we were to do that, would we consider opening a new dining commons to actually address all of those things? So I would absolutely invite and encourage the student body to participate in this planning process going forward. Most importantly, as it deals with the campus center, as we solicited some input last fall, but it's going to be really critical because it will be our building plan for the next 5 to 10 years in all likelihood. So, but as always, whether it's Wi-Fi issues or other sort of capital facility planning type things, please feel free to reach out, and happy to answer any questions that I can in person or by email.
All right, and we'd love to have you on again. Thank you so much for coming by. And as he said, if you'd like to get in contact with him and send any emails, they're working on the Wi-Fi plan. So if you have any problem areas you'd like to report, please email that to jkeenan@salemstate.edu. And all right, thank you very much for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Sean.